Republicans and Democrats often play for the same team when it comes to spending efforts. They like to argue about how they want to spend the money that they stole from you and your future generations by way of monetizing debt. This is not something that is simply unique to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. A lot of your beloved senators and House of Representatives members have voted in support of trillion-dollar bills that subsidize researching whether or not fucking lizards can walk on treadmills. Another infrastructure bill is of $1 trillion. I think people become numb to that. They become numb to how much money that actually is, money of which they don't have. What the consequences are doesn't matter. They're politicians. They're not going to feel it. So generally what happens is they come up with guess amounts of how much money that they're going to, this is how much the project's going to cost. This is what we're going to spend it on. And this is how much we're going to actually bring in. And it's guess. This is Keynesian economists who you cannot possibly predict that. They like to think that they can when they're budgeting and shit like that, how much revenue they're going to be able to bring in of stolen assets. And often they're wrong. I mean, because you can imagine it's a very difficult thing to try to do. Another example here where they said initially that the $1 trillion infrastructure bill was paid for. But now they're saying, well, it'll add $256 billion to the deficit. And under your nose right now, they're trying to pass that. So, again, more monetized debt that is being added to the debt. This is what deficit spending is. And they are selling off assets of your children's children. Let's read what Blaze had to say here. And this is going to be from my man's Chris Field. The $1 trillion infrastructure bill currently working its way through the U.S. Senate hit a bump in the road Thursday when the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, released its score of the bill, which estimated that the measure would add hundreds of billions of dollars to the federal budget deficit over the next 10 years. I mean, like, it does, like, there are people that go get degrees, doctorates in economics, which they teach quack form of economics, so this is Keynesianism, in the university to come up with this shit. Because generally that's who they deploy, right? When they talk about budgeting and all of that, that's who they get out there. It's like, oh, well, we're going to save this amount of money, and then we're going to spend this amount of money, or we're going to bring in this amount of money, and they're trying to guess shit for 10 years down the line. It's a literally impossible fucking thing. But now I guess there was a hiccup. They didn't carry the one over. Something happened, and here we are. As the Wall Street Journal reported, the CBO analysis runs counter to the claim made by the bipartisan group of senators who negotiated a bill that their plan was fully paid for. And they're trying to hurry to get the spending package passed, despite it being fairly obvious that they don't have the fucking money. As mentioned right here, what's going on, the Democratic majorities in both houses of Congress were pushing a massive $3.5 trillion so-called infrastructure bill plan that actually a progressive agenda catch-all bill. That's all every bill is, or every plan that they come up with is basically a bunch of shit baked into it. But they'll name it something like Save America Act or something like that. They generally do, and it's just a bunch of bullshit in it. The measure would fund what the left called human infrastructure projects, such as Medicare expansion, national paid leave, free college tuition. But the price tag was too much for Senate Republicans, at least one Democratic senator, meaning that it was that in the 50-50 upper chamber, the bill was going nowhere. So a bipartisan group of lawmakers negotiated. So instead of $3 trillion, we'll bring it down to $1 trillion because that's just not that much money apparently. To cover issues such as transit, broadband, and water systems. Why the fuck is the government in control of any of that? When they released their bill, the senators claimed it was fully paid for using their new revenue and savings. Saving what? Including repurposing COVID-19 aid. I want y'all to think closely about what they're saying. I think I probably lost y'all with me laughing. I'm going to break that down to you. This is what they thought they could do. It's classic government. So what they thought they could do is that money that they stole and tried to account for before, the COVID-19 multiple $trillion stimulus packages, which again were stolen assets of unborn. That's all this money is, and money that they don't have. So it's other debt. Right. It's still other debt and deficit spending. They thought they could repurpose the debt spending that they were doing before to this one, and then they could break even. Like, could you imagine any business operating like that? That effectively would be, I mean, they'd be bankrupt, but they would be out of there. The money's not there. It's fake. But they thought they could repackage it and still came up short. The new spending bill is offset through a combination of new revenue and savings, some of which is reflected in the formal CBO score, and some of which is reflected in other savings and additional revenue. Identify estimates. The CBO is limited to what it can include in its formal score. But some Republicans who already had issues with the bill indicated the CBO score would impact whether or not they would ultimately, this is just politics right here. Senate Republican John Thune said this before the CBO announcement. There's a lot of swirl around the question of the pay-fors, and I think people are going to be drilling down, looking carefully at how real these are, and the official CBO scorecard when it comes out will be pretty determinative. I'm not even about to try to say that again. For a lot of people, determinative. There we go. Florida Senator Mark Rubio is one of those people. He took to Twitter following the CBO report saying the massive infrastructure bill is not, as its authors claim, fully paid for. No shit. It wasn't fully paid for in the multiple other packages and $1 trillion spending efforts that you guys have perpetuated, not just this past year and some change, but I don't know, since forever. Right? Let's go ahead and look at something real quick. These are the guys. I have to continue to put this up here because I just want you guys to understand how broke this fucking government is. Because it's this is how you know, which is what it's able to do by way of the Treasury and the central banking system. This is the group of assholes who are sitting here arguing about taking on more $1 trillion projects. You see all this fucking red here? Right? This is going to be 30 trillion in fucking no time. I might blink and it'll be 30 trillion. And the problem is that people, Republicans, they only care about spending really when it's like definitely with the presidency. It's their guy in office, and then they claim they don't even care no more. I mean, like I said, Trump was absolutely disastrous on spending, and that was all good and dandy because they're a bunch of fucking frauds. Right? This idea that they're economically sound, it's all they're fucking socially conservative bullshit. Like, shut the fuck up. They ain't never been that. All they're doing effectively with the Democrats and what they've historically done is argue on what they want to spend the money on. But the money's getting spent and they ain't got it. They steal as much as they possibly can from you. And then what they can't account for, well, they steal from future generations. And this group of people is somehow every single time, of course it was a lot. Oh, we're going to be able to pay. How are you going to pay for it when the previous COVID package wasn't paid for, motherfucker? The money's not there. It's not there. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.